Welcome to the podcast Beyond the Ballot, a Lone Wolf production. This is where we showcase local politics by providing a platform for elected officials and candidates. Today's episode is sponsored by Old Time New York Hot Dogs. Old Time New York Hot Dogs is located on Route 6 in Carmel, New York, serving soubrettes, nothing but the best, and is owned and operated by a veteran. Make sure to stop by and enjoy an Old Time New York Hot Dog, the best in town. I'm proud to introduce the guest for today's show, Brett Yarris, candidate for Putnam County Legislator of District 5. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate you.
So as mentioned, Brett's running for Putnam County Legislator of District 5. Can you tell us which areas make up District 5?
Yeah, sure. District 5 is the bulk of Carmel Hamlet. So think of like the area where Putnam Plaza is, where the Starbucks, the CVS Plaza, where Old Time Hot Dog is, all the way up 52, okay, towards the Lake Carmel portion of Kent. So just a really big area of Carmel Hamlet and the Hamlet only. And then that Lake Carmel portion of Kent also covers the Hillendale neighborhood, Sparrow Ridge, the Fairways, all up by like Carmel Creamery in that area as well.
So let's start with a few lighthearted questions and then ease into a little bit more of the hard-hitting questions.
Sure.
Okay. So let's discuss your personal background. How long have you lived in Carmel, and what do you think makes this area so special?
Yeah, so I lived in Carmel Hamlet for about 5 years, where I bought my house. But I've been in Putnam County and in the district, if you will, for close to 16 years. I met my wife about 16, 17 years ago when we were both at college. And she grew up, born and raised in Putnam County, living in Putt Valley. She went through Carmel High School, and I met her when I was 19.
What college were you guys attending?
That was SUNY Purchase at the time, down in White Plains area.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, and I only laugh because I got engaged 6 months later, and we've been together for 16, 17 years now. It's been great, but it's really because of her. I'm Long Island born and raised. And like most people who get the chance to leave Long Island and they see that there's an entire world off of the island, we tend not to go back. And so when I met her, not only did I know she was the one, but I also knew this is where it is. So I always say that I was born on Long Island, but I became a man in Putnam County. From 19 on, I've been here. And, once we started a relationship, I always wanted to be involved in football coaching and all this stuff. And so I got a job as the freshman football coach at Carmel High School. And I was one of the first ever varsity lacrosse coaches at Carmel High School. And that's 15 years ago. So, been in the community ever since. And then we had our daughter, and now we have a 4-year-old son. But when we were looking for our true forever home, like where are we going to spend, the peak of our lives, we decided to make it in Carmel Hamlet. And we put our roots down 5 years ago. We bought our house, and we'll be here for a long time.
So you played football yourself?
I played football in high school.
So what position did you play?
Wide receiver and safety. Yeah, I definitely don't have the size to be a wide receiver anymore. I'm a little slow now. So,
So who were your mentors or role models in your life?
Yeah, I mean, my mom, right? My mom, my parents got divorced when I was 8. And so I was raised by a single mom, and, we bounced around from basement apartment to basement apartment, and she never made more than $45,000 a year in her entire life. And I never felt like I didn't have, you know what I'm saying? Like, despite that, I never felt like I was going without. She always found a way to make it work. The lights were on. We didn't always put the heat on in the winter because it was expensive. But, she always found a way where I always felt loved. I always felt cared for. She just always figured it out despite not having any of those advantages. And what's, personal to me about this entire run now is that she's a senior. She lives on a fixed income, and she doesn't live on Long Island anymore. She lives right here in District 5. And she's hopefully going to be one of my constituents. She's part of a demographic that we're doing this for. They're getting priced out of living here in Putnam County. I asked her, I begged her, come up from Long Island to come live with me. And now we're trying to figure out a way to make that work and make it affordable. So, my mom, they say not all heroes wear capes, and she never wore a cape, but easily a superhero. And
last question to break the ice.
Sure.
Is there anything about yourself that people might not know or might find interesting?
I think anyone who's followed me for a little bit now knows about my work in special education and all the things I've done there. A lot of people probably don't know that the same stuff that I do in special education, I also do to work with NFL players. and train NFL players in terms of their technique. I'm a behaviorist by trade. And so I look at NFL technique for different positions as behaviors that can be shaped. And I started my football coaching right here at Carmel High School, and I've coached NFL players to become 2-time Super Bowl champions. So
are you still in contact with any of those superstars?
Oh yeah, most of them. Yeah. And this past April, I was in Dallas for a couple of weeks doing my training down there. And typically around the springtime, I always get back to it somewhere in Texas, somewhere warm. Unfortunately, the Northeast is not conducive to year-round training for professional sports, but they fly me out there and we get the work done and help them prepare for the season coming up.
All right, let's get down to business now.
All right.
What is your professional experience? You somewhat spoke about it just now.
Sure.
And is there anything specifically from your profession that relates to the role of county legislator?
Yeah, I mean, look, I've been my profession has really always been in the service of others. I come from a service sort of oriented family. My grandfather on my father's side was a NYPD cop for 20 years. He was a Korean War veteran. My grandmother ran all the local scouts for my dad and my uncles. My grandfather on the other side was a volunteer firefighter. Both uncles on my mom's side, one was a court officer and one was a corrections officer. So when I was coming out of college, out of SUNY Purchase, I had no idea what it is I wanted to do. And I just knew I wanted to be involved in football. And so I went to a school district in Westchester because that's where I was kind of at, the Bedford School District. And I asked to be a coach. And they're like, yeah, absolutely. But you got to do something else. You can't just be a coach. You have to do something else for the district. And they asked me to be a one-to-one aide for a child with autism. And I was like, yeah, okay. Like, I didn't really know what autism was. I didn't know what special ed was. And I was like, I just have to follow a kid around all day and then I can coach football. Done. Easy. Well, 3 weeks into the school year, not so easy. It was very tough. It was very difficult. I wasn't properly trained. I didn't really have an understanding. I got to see kind of firsthand how the public schools are probably not well run in the ways that they should be to help the most amount of people. And within 3 weeks, I was actually looking to quit. I reached out to my godfather, who's another mentor of mine. And he, helped me, sort of secure interviews in other places, ESPN being one of them. And when I got to the final round of interviews, I was like, hey, what should I do? Should I do ESPN, go into the sports world? Should I do the sales job over here? And he was like, I think you should stay at the school. Wow, and I was like, really? I don't think I properly explained to you what it is we're trying to do here. I'm trying to leave the school. And he's like, look, you're 21 years old. He's like, you've got your entire life ahead of you. You do not need to be chasing the dollar now. You're doing something that can make a difference. Figure out how long you can do this for. Figure out how to make it work. And I stuck it out for the school year. But not only that, I came to fall in love with the profession itself. So I ended up getting my master's degree in special ed, becoming the teacher of that room that I was a one-to-one aide in, and then starting what has now been a lifelong career working with the special needs community. So about 10 years ago, I started my own business to do behavior science and to do it in the fitness and social skill area because I thought those were two critical needs for that community. And I continue to do that to this day, but I've added things like NFL training, continuing to pursue my love of football, my love of sports and carry that forward. And I also started a few businesses. So I started a football media company called Pro Football Network. I recruited Trey Wingo to leave ESPN and come join us. And for the NFL fans out there, Trey Wingo, pretty big deal. And him and I did a podcast together. We did a show together. We built the company into a multi-million-dollar company. I served as the chief strategy officer of that company for a long time. And we sold it in 2000. Well, I sold my stake in 2023 and, just continuing to do all the things, that I've been doing. So my professional background is very eclectic, very diverse. And the way that helps me and has been helping me be a county legislator is I've overseen multi-million-dollar budgets. I'm actually kind of doing that for the county now on the soil and water board that I've been appointed to. But other than that, I've had to pull people together from all different walks of life, all different communities, and make sure that we're pulling in the same direction. But the most important skill through that entire process, whether it was in the media company, whether it was working with NFL players, whether it was being a special education teacher and then working privately in the special needs community, the goal has always been to be in the service of other people. And at the end of the day, that's what being an elected official is supposed to be. It hasn't been that way in Putnam County for a very long time, but that is what it is supposed to be. And that's the number one thing that I'm going to carry over and have been carrying over.
And we'll get into that. One of my questions is about what criticisms you have for the current administration. But we'll get into that.
Yeah. Okay.
I kind of want to preface beginning of the really tough questions right now by saying that I think the main purpose of this platform is to clarify things for voters.
Sure.
And I think there's a lot of chatter out there. So I just want to get down to the nitty gritty of some issues or some questions that maybe are, people might have.
Yeah.
And, at the end of every episode, I say, if you have any questions or any comments you want to leave for us, email us or message us on Facebook. We're more than welcome to, have those questions and use them for future episodes.
That's great.
So you're running on the Democratic ticket and you're also on the independent line. Well, we'll go into that later, that you formed a party for the people.
Sure.
Correct. You're also, like I said, the first guest on the show that is not a Republican, and you're obviously on a different ticket line. And but before this, you were registered as a libertarian, right? So what has influenced you to align with the Democratic Party rather than the Republican Party? I think people might be curious to hear your answer on that.
Yeah, actually, I get asked that a lot. I've answered it on Facebook a few times. I try to be as responsive to everybody as I can. People have asked that on Facebook, and I've given this answer, quite a bit. First, I think I want to draw a distinction between a couple things. The first is, yes, I was a registered libertarian. Freaking Andrew Cuomo screwed up a lot of third parties who had an opportunity to have ballot access. And one of the third parties that got screwed in that deal was the Libertarian Party. So in New York, and certainly in Putnam County, the Libertarian Party doesn't have a ballot line anymore. So to be a libertarian doesn't help me vote for libertarian candidates because they can't be on the ballot as a libertarian.
Right, for the primary or for the general?
For the general and the primary, for both. Yeah, for all elections. The Libertarian Party doesn't have doesn't have ballot access anymore in New York. Okay. Which is really unfortunate. The more diverse voices we have speaking to the people, the better. So what I initially did when that happened is I switched my party to independent. In fact, on the ballot, you check other if you're not going to pick one of the four others. I check other, and in parentheses, I wrote libertarian. That was like my sign of defiance, But the other distinction that I want to draw is that I am a registered Democrat. I registered with the Democratic Party so that I could vote in primaries, so that I could, have access to a broader scope of thinking than what I had always had. All right. As I think a lot of people know, New York is not an open primary state. So if you're not in a Republican or Democratic primary, you cannot vote in the primaries. You don't get to pick who those nominees are. So while every other party, if you're registered, has access to, in some cases, 7, 8 candidates throughout the entire campaign cycle, independents only have access to the two that the major parties pick. Correct. So I registered with the Democratic Party so I could be a part of that primary process at the, at that level. But I don't think I wouldn't say that it's fair to say I've aligned myself with the Democratic Party over the Republican Party, especially in terms of local politics. And that's the big distinction. Our local politics are not partisan. Our local issues are not partisan issues. Okay. And I know that sounds like wild for people watching at home who are watching cable news. They're on their social media algorithms all the time. And we're just getting blasted in the face involuntarily by these algorithms of all the different national things that are going on. And we're hearing just opinion after opinion after opinion. And so we start to look at our local issues in that lens, right? But the truth is our local issues are not party-based issues. And I can prove that to you. You do not have to take my word for it. Since February 12th, I have been to over 70 Putnam County legislature meetings, 70 committees, special fulls, special committees, and the full legislative meetings, every single one. Okay. I have seen hundreds of votes across all kinds of issues. Again, this is all public record. Anyone watching, listening at home can go look at this for themselves. You can contact the Putnam County Clerk's office. You can contact the legislative clerk's office. You can verify this. Do you know how many party line votes I've seen? Over hundreds of votes?
No.
0. In the Putnam County Legislature, a party line vote is 8-1 because there's 8 Republicans and 1 Democrat. There have been exactly 0 party line votes. These issues are not party-based issues. So while we make the distinction that I am a registered Democrat, and I am a registered Democrat, I am not aligned with any of the parties.
What about ideologies?
Yeah, I think, again, I am all over the place. Historically, I've been a libertarian and an independent. Only recently am I a registered Democrat. That's not like a lifelong thing. And I would say anybody who's blindly allegiant to a dogmatic ideology is failing their local neighbor. And we can't do that because that's where we're going to lose the plot. Right. That's what's happened, is that while we're all distracted by all these national party headlines that make the news every day, we've lost a sense of our local neighborhoods. We've lost a sense of our local communities. I am the only candidate in this race that actually doesn't sit on a political committee. And what that means is I don't sit on the Carmel Democratic Committee. I don't sit on the Kent Democratic Committee or the Putnam County Democratic Committee. I am not involved in any party level decision making. I don't pick their platform. I don't write their platform. I have anything to do with it. My opponent, on the other hand, sits on the Carmel Republican Committee. In fact, he was named the sub-chair or the chair of the subcommittee for the school board to get politics into our schools and nominate and endorse school board candidates for the Republican Party. Okay. So I am the only candidate who's independent from any of that. I have no allegiance to any parties. I'm allegiant to my neighbors and to the people.
Do you have any interest in joining any of the Democratic
No,
committees?
And I'm glad you asked that because I've been asked by both Carmel and Kent. They both asked me, and respectfully, I've declined each and every time.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah.
So you've kind of delved into it, but what has served as your motivation to run for county legislator? And do you have any specific criticisms towards the current administration? Great
question. Let me take it in 2 parts.
Yes.
What first motivated me was, so I live like right on the border of Carmel Hamlet and Kent. Anybody that knows or lives in Carmel Hamlet, we often refer to it as the Hamlet, because while we're part of the town of Carmel, we often feel like the redheaded stepchild of the town. Not one person sitting on the Carmel town government is a resident of Carmel Hamlet. They're all Mahopac residents. Mm-hmm. And so we often feel like we're, not always getting our due. Even though we pay 46% of the taxes, we have 0% representation in town government. And so you might ask, well, why aren't you running for town government? And the truth is because Mahopac doesn't feel like a community of mine. Part of District 5 does serve Carmel Hamlet residents who go to Mahopac schools, mm-hmm. but they live in Carmel Hamlet. And the District 5 seat represents the biggest bulk of Carmel Hamlet without representing the Mahopac zip code. And that Lake Carmel portion of Kent, which a lot of people know, shares the same zip code as Carmel Hamlet. It's very confusing.
Yeah, no, it is. I'm trying to follow you. So the children, what school district do they go to when you live in the Hamlet?
They mostly go to Carmel School District.
Okay.
There's a very small minority of the population in the District 5 Carmel Hamlet zip code that goes to the Mahopac School District.
Okay.
Some of them actually, this is where it gets real confusing. Some of the 10512 zip code also goes to the Brewster School District.
Oh, wow.
So that's where it gets a little murky, right? But I want to run for this seat because this seat represents the biggest bulk of my community, the community in which I live in a day-to-day basis and have lived for 5 years, right? I'm the only candidate for this seat that pays property taxes in Carmel Hamlet, in the town, actually pays property taxes at all. So these are all the, reasons why I wanted to get involved. My neighborhood is a throwback neighborhood. Okay. Think of the days of where, your parents and your grandparents used to know all their neighbors. Mm-hmm. All the kids used to play with all the other kids in the neighborhood. My current neighborhood is like that. Throughout the week, a bunch of us dads, we get together, we throw back a couple beers when we're watching Sunday night football, Monday night football, Final Four, whatever it is. We get together. Our kids all know each other. They all play together. The kids get on the school bus in the morning and we all hang for an extra 15, 20 minutes going through what's going on in everybody's lives, right? Democrats, Republicans, conservatives, independents, we don't ask. It doesn't matter. What I know we all care about is our neighborhood. And we always have, every time we get together, we all have the same complaints. The downtown of Carmel Hamlet isn't very family friendly. We're tired of looking at Smallies being empty for the last 5-6 years. That's been a big eyesore. We're concerned about losing Carmel Cinema, though it looks like it's coming back. Okay.
Oh, they are.
That's what I heard. I talked to the town of Carmel building inspector, Mike Carnazza, who told me that, there was some good movement there. So that's what he said. We'll see if that happens. But that's our biggest problem, right? We have Putnam, our biggest economic center is Putnam Plaza and the ShopRite Plaza. You just see the ongoing in and out of local businesses and storefront vacancies. So that was the first thing that we all talked about. I'm like, hey, we got to change this. I was the guinea pig to go ahead and change it, right? So I jump in. And as I've gone through the process, especially in February, when I was kind of just feeling it all out, is this something I feel like I can do? Is this something I can put my family through? Right? I've got 2 young kids, a full-time working wife who also, does all the things for our kids in terms of getting my daughter to dance and soccer and all these other things. But then as I go through, issue after issue kept popping up where I'm like, what? This is happening. This is happening. This is happening. Our farmers are having their constitutional rights violated. We don't share sales tax with our local municipalities. We're sitting on $90 million in cash and not investing it back into our towns and into our neighborhoods. So as those issues pop up, I've become just more and more passionate. And the last part of why I decided to run is because for me, this isn't a stepping stone to another political career. I have no interest in running for Congress. Yes, that's on tape. You can write it down. Not my thing. Not looking for it. Local, community. That's what I care about. And for me, it's personal. I'm raising my kids here. My children. This isn't I hope I can just add this to my resume. I've never worked on a political campaign before. I've never run for anything before. I'm not part of the political elite of Putnam County. I wasn't asked by, elected officials to run for this seat. I literally threw my hat in the ring.
So I was going to say, how did it happen? Like, how did this all transpire?
Yeah, I went around and tried to figure out how does somebody run for office. And I found, the Carmel Dems, actually the Carmel Democrats, they were looking for candidates. I was a registered Democrat, so it was easy to do. I said, hey, I'll run. And because no one else was running, I got their ballot line. But I began to then get into, okay, what is this all coming back to? If anyone's seen my video on Facebook where I talk about the For the People Party, the first thing I talk about is how when I first jumped in this race, I told everybody, including the Carmel Democratic Party, I'm not running as a Democrats are the best and Republicans are the absolute worst. And you have to pick me because I'm a Dem and you have to pick, go against them because they're Republicans. I said the exact opposite. The people surrounding me are going to be from every single ideology. And I've held true to that to this day forward. My campaign manager is a conservative. My campaign strategist is the Conservative Party town chair of Putnam Valley. I also have Democrats who are helping me out and going through as we look to push this effort forward of getting away from party-based politics and getting into the actual local issues themselves.
Now, this is going to be a little awkward.
Okay.
But I wanted, so you're fraternizing. So you've had criticisms for the current administration, correct?
I wouldn't say the administration. I would say I've had a lot of criticism for Putnam County government as a whole. Some of that is levied at the administration. A lot of that is levied at the current legislature, which are two different branches. My biggest issue with, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, because you're speaking about how you are, you have a relationship with all walks of the political realm.
Yeah.
And just because it's out there, everything's out there. More recently, we've seen you at the Kent GOP golf outing with Greg Elner. What's up with that? Tell me.
Man, can I tell you something? If that doesn't tell you how far we have lost the plot, where that's making that's a big headline. Greg and I don't see eye to eye on so many things. In fact, when I first jumped in this race, it was Greg I thought I was running against. Right. Now, he ended up losing the primary. But you can go.
So how does that happen? Your opponent and now you guys are, hanging out with one another.
Because I think opponent doesn't have to mean enemy, right? I don't think opponent has to mean I disagree with you. I think I can, maybe do this job differently than you and have a better outcome, but now I have to hate you because of that. Like, I don't think those two things are necessary to go on. Now, Greg is practically my neighbor. I could stand at the end of my driveway and throw a football over the house across the street and land it in his backyard. Okay. So like Greg, we live in the same community, not just the neighborhood, but we both live full time in Carmel Hamlet. So I know that if I were to have lost a race to him, okay, we may disagree, which is healthy. It's expected. It should happen. But I also know that I can pick up the phone and say, hey, Greg, I got to tell you my thoughts on this. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, there's things that Greg does that I don't agree with, and I've called him out for it publicly on the floor of the legislature many times. There's video of it. Go to my YouTube channel. And I'll do that to anybody that I disagree with. I will give you my unfiltered, transparent perspective. That's what the people deserve. But what I'm not going to do is sit here and fraudulently claim that because of that, I now hate Greg and I think Greg is the worst human being to ever live. Just like I don't hate Jake. I don't think Jake D'Angelo is the worst person to ever live. I think Jake is a very impressive young man. He's an impressive kid. Okay. To be that age, 23, 24 years old and decide you're going to throw your hat in the ring and step into the arena. That's impressive. That takes courage and he should be commended for that. I don't hate him. I disagree with him. I disagree with a lot of the stuff that, a lot of the stuff that I really believe in. Him and I think, disagree on in terms of how to reach and how to represent the people. I think we disagree on that. But again, that's expected.
Right.
So
off the top of your head, I know we're gonna get off a track a little bit. What exactly do you guys disagree with? Like, what are the main points that you guys disagree about?
Jake and I.
Yeah.
But that's honestly, and I'm not trying to dodge, and I'll answer it to the best of my ability. That's probably a better question for him, only because I've been at this since February. And I've been going, like I said, I've been to 70 legislature meetings. I think he's been to 2 or 3. Okay. I speak at a lot of them, especially when issues come up that I feel really passionately about. So a lot of the concern is, I'm a registered Democrat. I'm going to torpedo, the administration. I'm going to torpedo Republican County Executive Kevin Byrne. And Kevin, Kev's alluded to that a few times. And Kev knows, if he's being honest, that that's not true, right? Because Kevin Byrne's biggest administrative policy accomplishments of this year, I've been the only candidate fighting with him, not against him. When it came time to the Early Learning Center getting done, I was the one showing up at every single meeting and speaking publicly on the record, directly in the faces of people like Greg, by the way, to get this done. When it came to keeping the sales tax rate where it is, to enable the sales tax sharing revenue, I was for that issue before Kevin Byrne was. I was on the record in February pushing and fighting for that. So I don't know what issues Jake thinks he's going to be different than me on, because Jake is there to support Kevin, but I'm aligned with Kevin on a lot of different things.
When did you decide to run?
I made the announcement in March. I began to explore it in late January.
Okay.
That's when I started. So my whole thing is like, if I'm going to do something, I need to know, can I do it? Can I give it 110%? I'm not going to half-ass it. Like I said, it's personal to me. My kids are at stake. My mom is at stake. My wife is at stake. My neighbors are at stake. So I started
But your participation shouldn't be viewed as being performative, or...
I would hope not. I would hope not. It's so, like I said, I made the announcement, I think, in March. I was speaking at meetings back in February. But I also think it's important that if you're a candidate for a seat, that you demonstrate that you can do the job and you understand the job that you're running for. Mm-hmm. Okay. I can't do that. I don't even know if I can do the job I'm running for if I don't go to the legislature and see how it operates. What are the rules? What is expected of me as a county legislator? What can I do and what can't I do? For example, what I can't do as a county legislator, whether I have construction experience or not, is drive down Fair Street and oversee the DPW projects that they have to do. It's not the job of a county legislator. Right. It doesn't matter if you have construction experience or not. What I can do is provide oversight over the budget process. What I can do is provide oversight over the administration, make sure that any money we allocate in the budget for them to do, for the administration to do what it has to do, is being done properly. That's the job of a legislator. So I don't know if I can do that unless I go. And then once I go and see these issues that pop up, I think it's important that the public understand that the people who I'm asking to trust me with oversight over a $200+ million budget, that they know that I actually am aware of what the issues are. The only way to do that is to go to legislative meetings and be aware of what the issues are. So people may say that me speaking there is performative, and that's fine. I would hope that the voters would want to know that the person they're voting for actually knows what the job is and is ready to do it day one. You ask any of those legislators sitting there, some of them, Republicans, mind you, already joke that I'm basically already a legislator because they know I will step in day one and I will hit the ground running. I don't need a learning period.
Okay. You mentioned Fair Street.
Sure.
And DPW.
Sure.
Why it relates to my next question.
Okay.
The legislative board operates under a committee system.
Yeah.
Are there any particular committees that you'd want to serve on? Also, if you could tell us more about your appointment on the Putnam County Soil and Water Conservation District Board.
Sure. So that's a good question. I have given thought to some committees I'd like to be on. I would say that, once I win in November, I will gladly take any committee appointment that I'm given. I'll be the newbie. I don't think you get to walk in there and say, I'm going to be on this committee. But with my work and my advocacy for agriculture, for our farmers, being on soil and water, getting the chance in Carmel Hamlet on a weekly basis, going and looking at the different DPW projects going on in my district so I can understand that infrastructure side. Physical services feels like a good committee that I think I could do a lot of good work on. My background in mental health and social services and special education, my extreme advocacy for the Early Learning Center, which if I could just come back to for 1 second, because the county executive knows, by the way, that my advocacy for that Early Learning Center wasn't performative, because he invited me to a couple of those meetings to go and speak. He had Chris Formisano, his director of communications, tell me, hey, there's a meeting tonight, you should come and speak at it. So the administration knows that my speaking on these issues is not performative. It's extremely authentic, and they know that I provide a powerful voice to get these things across the finish line.
I just wanted to clarify that, just because some people might perceive it as being performative rather than being authentic.
I could not agree more that people will think that, because the world we live in, every politician seems performative. Everything seems inauthentic. We have a cynicism around politics now that is probably at its highest level ever in our history post-Civil War. And I think cynicism of government is healthy, libertarian over here. Okay.
That's your main plank as a libertarian.
We should 100% be skeptical. But I also think that what I would ask people to do is consider the record. What you can't do is go and speak on these issues in public on the floor of the legislature, then get into the legislature and walk it back. I have literally created a public record, right? So if I were to do that, I've created the evidence that would be used against me as being inauthentic, right? So actually
people still don't have a problem with. They may say one thing and do a different thing.
Right, which I think is the biggest problem we have in Putnam County. That's gotten a lot of legislators into trouble. That's gotten former county executives into trouble. And I think what we need is somebody who's not part of that political class. They're not one of the political chosen elite of Putnam County. I have no allegiance to the politicians in this town. I've never been, like I said, I don't sit on their committees. I'm not out there as a committee choosing who's going to run as a Democrat, who's going to run as a Republican. I'm not doing any of that. I don't get involved in that. I'm here. I got neighbors. I got family. That's all this is about for me.
Now, back to physical services.
Sure.
Do you think your professional experience in the private sector makes you well equipped for that type of position to be in that committee?
Yeah, like I said, I think the physical services encompasses a broad range of projects, a broad range of material, right? So it's infrastructure,
right,
and it's agriculture,
right.
And I think that there's a lot of things that I bring to the table that make me a benefit for both. On the ag side, it's how knowledgeable I've become on agriculture in Putnam County. I think it's how far I took my advocacy, standing with local farmers on a weekly basis, advocating on their behalf, that makes me a benefit on that side. Now on the infrastructure side, as a legislator, that comes down to budget. It's not about knowledge of construction. Mm-hmm. That's why we have the commissioner of DPW. That's why we have the DPW department. That's the administration's job, is to get the experts. What you need as a legislator is somebody who understands budgets. You need somebody who understands investment, who understands we can't be recklessly spending money that we don't have. We can't be recklessly spending money that we do have. Just because we have it doesn't mean we spend it recklessly. You have to have somebody who understands that. And I have overseen multi-million-dollar budgets in every business of my life. I'm an entrepreneur. I am a business owner. That's what I do. And that's what I've done for a very long time. I've done it for over a decade. And so that I have created businesses, that I have created jobs, and that I have then put my time and money investment into those businesses and then sold them at a profit. I took a business that I started for a couple $1,000s and sold it for multiples of millions. So understanding that process and how to invest and get returns on that investment, that's what I think helps me with physical services. But that's the job of a legislator on any committee, is understanding that budget and financial process. I think the health committee is a great one that I would be a benefit to in my professional background, but then also coming back as a business owner, right? There's the economic development committee. That's another one that I think I could be helpful on. I think I could be helpful anywhere that they ask me to be. Whatever they ask me to do, I'm going to dive in head first. But like I said, I haven't missed a single committee meeting since February. So I'm well aware on all of the committees and how they work and how they operate.
So we've mentioned about the agricultural district. And that's when you first landed on my radar.
I think a lot of people
started to read and learn about the agricultural district of the county. And you've made this one of your top issues on your campaign trail.
Sure.
But there is no major farmland in District 5, correct?
That's correct. No major farmland. There's farmland, but not major.
So why is this issue so important to you? And can you tell us a little bit more about what transpired?
Yeah, well, first I'll answer that first part first, why it's important to me. I'm not a farmer. My neighborhood doesn't have farms. I didn't grow up on a farm. I have no history with farming. It's exactly like my experience in special education. I had no prior experience. I found out what was going on. I thought I could be better, and so I did. When it comes to the agriculture issue, why it became a big issue for me, this is where my conservative values, my libertarian values come through. It wasn't about farmers. They happened to be the victims here, but it was about government overreach and infringement on these farmers' constitutional rights. In New York State, you have the constitutional right to farm. Okay. And that's what the court case for the farm that was suing the county established. So it wasn't that the farmers are being hurt and we need to defend the farmers. Yes, that is the specific reality of it. But it really was, these could be any of our neighbors. Mm-hmm. This could be any business owner. This could be anyone who the county decides they're going to use arbitrary and capricious rules to prevent from being able to do the things that they're constitutionally obligated and guaranteed to do. And so when I saw that in March, and by the way, what I was speaking on when I first met these farmers, I was at the March full legislative committee. I had been advocating for public speaking rights at these legislative meetings. Legislator Aaron Crowley, a Republican representing Mayapack, had introduced a resolution in February. It passed unanimously out of committee. I was happy to speak on it in February before I was even a candidate. March comes around. I was looking forward to thanking the legislators for approving it. It comes up for a vote, and legislator Paul Yankee votes to take it off the agenda before it can be discussed. Now, because it was taken off the agenda, technically I wasn't going to be allowed to talk about it that night because it wasn't on the agenda. But I got up and I was so angry that they had exploited this loophole to get around this thing that had passed unanimously out of committee. It's the exact thing people hate about government. Mm-hmm. Loopholes to get around doing the things that they don't want you to know about. Okay. And so after I had spoken in March, the Farm Ridge Ranch, they were sitting there and they were like, can you help us? And they gave me a stack of documents about this thick to look through so I could become educated on what the issue was. After about 4 or 5 days of going through all of it, I was like, are you kidding me? This is happening in Putnam County. Putnam County is preventing its farmers from doing the things that they need to do. Putnam County towns are enacting violations and fees and all this stuff as a way of penalizing a farm, trying to do the things that it needs to do and it's constitutionally allowed to do, making up violations to hurt them. That's crazy. So that's not about farming. That's about doing the right thing and making sure government isn't overstepping and infringing on the constitutional rights of its people. That's a conservative value. That's a libertarian value. So that's why that became so powerful for me. But like anything else, if I'm going to advocate for it, I need to know it inside and out. I need to make sure that I am well read on the topic. And so I dove into into agriculture in this county. I dove into farming. I dove into soil and water conservation. I dove into all these different things so that when I do advocate for it, I'm an effective voice, and that I can make sure that I'm doing right by the people who need their elected officials to advocate for them. That's the job. So that's how that all got going.
What's going to happen with all the legal fees that were accrued for the farmers?
Yeah. This is, I wish I could accurately convey to you the frustration that I have over this. You have a farm that took Putnam County to court and went all the way to the state Supreme Court. Putnam County, the farm, Ridge Ranch, won in an overwhelming decision. If you read the 36-page decision by the judge in the New York Supreme Court, he basically takes the county to task. He says, your arguments are arbitrary, your arguments are capricious. He goes over tells Putnam County multiple times the county law department has misunderstood the application of the very law it was trying to argue. Okay? And so we put this family, and that's what they are. We say farm and we think, business, amorphous thing that we really can't put a face to.
The Hanovich family.
The Hanovich family. These are real people. Okay, they have a 2-year-old son. Half of this young boy's life has been spent in and out of county office buildings as they just fight tooth and nail for their ability to exist. Okay, that is the biggest issue. And it had gone on for well over a year and a half, this fight. They racked up tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees so that they could represent themselves. They could fight for their land, like quite literally the quintessential American thing to do, to fight for your land and to fight for your ability to utilize your land in the way that best helps your family.
So are they looking to sue Putnam County to compensate for their legal fees?
That I don't have knowledge of. What I do have knowledge of is that they want to be recompensated. They should have been recompensated. The money they spent on their legal fees only to find out that they were well within the right. They were in the right in this case. And then for them to not have been compensated, we're now this is what we're basically saying. We're saying to a young family farm, okay, we're going to take the money you don't already have and make you spend it fighting us to do what you're constitutionally allowed to do anyway. And then when you beat us in court, we're not going to give it back to you. I think that's a ridiculous message to send the private citizens of Putnam County, that if you can be right, if you can take your government to court and win, the government is not going to make you whole. That is unacceptable. If I were a sitting legislator right now, I would be fighting through all the processes and procedures that are available to me to make that change.
Okay. So let's revisit the point that you're on the independent ticket line and you have formed the party for the people. What was your reasoning behind this, and what are the ideologies of this party?
Sure, thank you. That's a great question. And I'm going to start off by actually going back to a question you had asked me earlier about criticisms I have for the administration. And what I said to you is I don't really have criticisms that are unique to the administration. I know Kevin Byrne. I like Kevin Byrne. We get along great. I think he's doing the job that, to the best of his ability. And he's done a lot of good things that I'm on the record agreeing with. My criticisms are for how Putnam County government operates as a whole. Okay. In March, I spoke at a meeting following them taking that public speaking off the agenda. I went to the very next committee meeting and I took them to task. And I said, anyone who comes, I got accused by a legislator that it was campaign season. And that's why I was making this an issue. And so I got up and I directly addressed that. And I said, anyone who comes to these meetings and sees how you guys operate is going to want to run to replace you. Because the way Putnam County government operates is dysfunctional. And again, this is not levied at the legislature. This is not levied at the administration. I said before, the makeup of the legislature in terms of party is 8 Republicans and 1 Democrat. In April, at the full legislative meeting, I reminded them that there are 8 Republicans out of 9 seats on this board, and they hate each other. They hate each other. They can't agree on anything. The administration, okay, has that same dysfunctional relationship with a large chunk of the Republican legislature. They're all Republicans. This fight that they're in isn't because they're Republicans. That's not how people behave. They're not defined by their party, okay? It's because they have forgotten how to do the job that needs to be done. I'll give you an example. The Early Learning Center came up, okay? And it was crunch time. The lease on the building had to get passed, all these different things. I was there with the Carmel School District Special Education PTO, this Carmel SEPTO. This is one of the meetings that the administration asked me to attend. And I was happy to be there. But what I wasn't happy about was how that meeting transpired. You have a bunch of families sitting there with children with special needs, okay? And let me tell you something. If you ask a family who has a child with special needs, what's your biggest fear? A lot of times the answer is going to be, what happens when I die? What happens when I'm not here to love my child? Who's going to love my child and provide for them the way that I do? Because God willing, my child's going to outlive me. So what happens? They live with a daily, consistent fear and anxiety. Is the school district doing right by them? Is the town doing right by them? The school's not paying for these services. How am I going to afford speech and language? How am I going to afford this? Not to mention groceries and all the other things, utility bills that we're all, struggling with. That's what these families are dealing with on a daily basis. They come to their elected leaders to provide clarity, not more fear and anxiety. So the families that are sitting there in this meeting are watching the legislature legitimately scream at each other, yell at each other. The county executive comes in the room. He's now yelling at the legislature. The legislature is yelling at him. By the way, it all got through in the end. But I got up and I said to both of them, this is not what the people need. They can't come here with their own anxiety, their own fear, and watch you guys behave this way and watch you guys add to it. To the county executive's credit, he got up and he apologized and he acknowledged, all the things that needed to be done. And that's to his credit. But when you ask me if I have criticisms about the administration, it's my criticisms of how this government operates. I wish I could tell you the Early Learning Center was the only issue that happened on. I watched this legislature debate for a half an hour, 30 minutes, about whether or not the county executive would have to sit or stand when he gave the State of the County address that he has to give every year. 30 minutes of taxpayer dollars spent on debating whether or not the county executive has to sit or stand during a speech. These are the things that I criticize the government for. So why I started For the People is because as I've gone through this process, and as I told you from day one, the people who pushed me to run were Democrats, were Republicans, were conservatives. We need a place to vote where ideology is not at the focus of what we're voting for. At local issues, ideology doesn't play a part. The local issues are not partisan issues. I hope I've demonstrated that enough, throughout our time together here. And so when I wanted to start this party, I can't.
How did you get that name for the party?
For the People?
Yeah.
Well, I had gone through a couple of different ones. I'll be honest with you. I looked at We the People, but I wanted the focus to be on people. And then I thought about how divided we are, the divisiveness. You hear some of our local politicians pretend that these things are hyper partisan because the party committees that I don't sit on are what keep them in power. Okay. But they know better. They know better that these are not ideological party issues. And so I thought about, when was the last time it feels like we've been this divided, this divisive? And that brought me back to the Civil War, which brought me back to the Gettysburg Address and Abraham Lincoln, when he talked about at the end of that needing a government of the people, by the people, for the people. Okay. And so that's where that name came from. And
coincidentally,
sure.
Was that the slogan for Kamala Harris's campaign in 2020?
I have no idea. I know it was RFK Jr.'s.
Oh, it was?
Thing at once, or his was We the People, some variation of For the People. But yeah, is that a thing that's going around online?
No, man, I'm just saying. I'm trying to figure out where the name came from.
No, I can promise you, I didn't take the slogan from a defunct campaign of the 2020 primary process that I couldn't vote in anyway because I wasn't a Democrat then. But the purpose of this was to stand by my commitment to bringing people together. That's what we need in this community. okay, is to bring people together. And so if I just say, like other Democratic politicians have done in the past, that I'm going to start an independent line so I can get an extra spot on the ballot that then nobody votes on anyway, that's what's going to happen. It's going to be viewed as a ploy, as inauthentic.
As a strategy.
As a strategy.
Right.
So what I did is I have gone and gotten a Republican ranch owner, a conservative party town chair. So I want to be very clear what that means. The head of the conservative party for that town is on this committee with me as the candidate. And also the only sitting Democratic legislator in Putnam County Legislature is Nancy Montgomery. Okay. So Nancy Montgomery, Henry Lopez, again, Henry, lifetime law enforcement, worked in the NYPD, the county DA's office, and then Dan Hanovich, the ranch owner who owns Ridge Ranch. Bringing literally every major party in this county, Republican, conservative, Democrat, together, supporting a candidate who has made a commitment to the people, not the party. And that is, I think, what this is all about. If we don't get to a place where we can look at our neighbors, as people we want to help. If you call me, we live in the same zip code, actually pretty far apart, but we live in the same zip code. If you said, hey, Brett, blizzard just came through. I got 3 feet of snow in my driveway. No one's home. I can't get out of my driveway. Can you come help me? The first thing I ask you isn't going to be, who'd you vote for president? I'm not going to help you till you tell me who you voted for. That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I'm just going to come because you're my neighbor. I don't care who you voted for president. Doesn't matter. We got real problems in this county. We got serious problems. We need serious people to solve them. The party thing is played out. It's over. What we need to do is get back to understanding who our neighbors are and how we're going to help them. That's what all 3 of these people who are leaders in their own party in some degree, okay, who have said to the Democrats, I'm going to support this guy, even though a conservative and a Republican are backing him too. I'm still going to support him because he's the right guy. The Conservative Party town chair. Okay. I didn't get the county Conservative Party endorsement, although I'm the only person who actually interviewed for it. I didn't get it. Okay. And that angered this person because when I interviewed with the entire county Conservative Party, he thought I was the best person for the job. So he's supporting me. Even though he's a conservative, he knows I'm a registered Democrat. It's not a secret, by the way. And the Republican ranch owner, okay, who was about to lose his farm to this county, who's going to have a hard time making it go, said he's going to support me. Even though we're not in the same party, he knows that I'm for the people because I was for him. That's the service we talk about. You asked me what I bring from my professional background. It's that service that people need to get back to rallying behind. I'm not going to be a rubber stamp for Democrats or the Democratic Party that I don't even belong to on a local level. My allegiance is to my neighbor. We have problems that my neighbors need fixed. I'm not going to fix them with Democrats. I'm not going to fix them with Republicans. We're going to fix them together.
Do you think you would have definitely had an easier go if you had aligned with the Republican ticket?
Without question. Without question. I have no problem saying that. Without question, I have to work 3 times as hard to even get my name out there because the entire political establishment, the swamp of Putnam County, is against me. That's the truth. Now, when I say against me,
everyone likes to throw that phrase around, anti-establishment.
Sure.
What does that mean exactly? Anti-establishment. What does that mean for you?
Yeah, I can only tell you what it means to me, on a local level. And I don't even mean it as a pejorative or like a slur of some kind, right? It's just that the elected officials, by and large in this county, belong to only one party. And it's been that way for decades. There's a lot of people upset with how Putnam County is progressing. And
I mean, it's not a secret that there's a lot of infighting within the Republican Party. And people claim they are against the anti-establishment.
Sure.
So I don't know if it's exactly about the major Republican Party. It's about more of like, I guess, an ideology that people have being anti-establishment.
I guess I can't speak for those people because, everyone, has their own way. What I would say is when I say establishment, I mean the elected class.
Okay.
The career politicians, the people who have been and bounced around from one elected office to another.
The old guards. That's
sometimes some of them are young. So some of the younger elected officials have only been in politics too. Whether they've served at the state level or the town level, now the county level. Establishment means this is something that's a career for you. I have a career. That's also why I'm not running for county executive or running for, the Putnam County Legislature is a part-time job. I have a career. I have a job. I serve people already. I want to keep that. I'm not giving that up. And so when I say anti-establishment, I mean, if you look at the established elected leaders in Putnam County, they all belong to one party. And yeah, there's infighting for sure. And many of those Republican elected officials support me. They're afraid to say so publicly because the party machine will come after them. But, I am running against the establishment. Okay. My opponent just had a fundraiser a couple of days ago. It was thrown for him by the county executive, a state assemblyman, and there was like 7 elected officials there. That's who I'm running against. I don't have that because I'm not a politician. I wasn't groomed for politics, right? So, for me, that's where, when I say anti-establishment, I'm not a part of that club. I'm not in the good old boys club. I'm my own guy. All the more reason why this is more important, because that's what the real people, the voters, the neighbors who have no idea about any of this, by the way, the voters aren't paying attention to the Republican infighting in the local Republican Party. They're trying to figure out how to pay their NICEAG bill. They're trying to figure out why the prices in ShopRite keep going up over on 52. Okay. That's their concern. They're trying to figure out, for those of us who live...
That's more on a state level. Wouldn't you agree?
100%. 100%. But they're also trying to figure out why Water District 2, which is where I live in Cromwell Water District 2, a couple months ago, there was an effort to make my property taxes go up by almost $1,100 if the town had pushed that through. Right? Like, there's all issues that are affecting the everyday person, the state issues, the town issues, the county issues. They're not paying attention to the inside politics. And so that's why they need somebody who lives in the community, is a leader in the community, a part of the community. Mentioned I coached high school football at Carmel, lacrosse. I coach my son's soccer team at Carmel United. I've been part of that program for 4 or 5 years. They need somebody who understands who we are, what we need in the hamlet, what we need in Lake Carmel.
In regard to the administration, do you think they've always operated with full transparency?
No. I think Kevin himself as a county executive has been more transparent with finances, his own personal finances, than any county executive before him, and I applaud him for that, for sure. But no, I think the government, again, this is not an administration issue. The government as a whole is not transparent. They just aren't.
How would you prove upon it? Transparency.
Yeah. So the first thing I did, going back to February, is when Republican legislator Aaron Crowley put forward a resolution to codify public speaking rights in committee meetings and at full legislative meetings before votes are taken, which is crucial. I gladly supported it. She's a Republican. People want to know, he's a Democrat. Can they work together? Yeah. Very vocally and passionately. And then, so that's the one thing. And that fight, by the way, that wasn't like a couple week fight because there's too much goddamn government around here. Okay. That got introduced in February. It didn't pass till August. Didn't pass until August when it got codified into the legislative manual about how, we're going to do this. And it went through multiple versions and variation, all this stuff. So what I would do is continue to fight for those efforts, to live stream our meetings, make sure the public who can't get there in person has access to it on the internet, whether they can watch it live or watch a recording of it later. When I got appointed to the Soil and Water Conservation District Board here in Putnam County, by the way, I got appointed unanimously by this legislature, 6 Republicans, 1 Democrat. They unanimously appointed me to oversee a budget. Just want to make that clear. Yeah. But even there, one of the first things we did as a board is vote to live stream our meetings. And I'll tell you one last thing.
Is that a new thing though? That district board, the Putnam County Soil and Water Conservation Board, is that new? Like,
no. And I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing because this actually came up last week at the Physical Services Committee. Part of my issue, and I don't know that this is a lack of transparency. I think the government can do a better job overall of education and outreach. But the public should know what the Soil and Water Conservation District Board is, because we oversee close to $1 million that comes direct to the board from New York State. It's not county taxpayer money. It comes to the board from New York State. And it's our job as a board to give that money out, not just to government projects, but to private landowners and taxpayers to ease their financial hurdles as they try to, deal with all the things that are going around environmentally. So, no, the board was formed in 1966.
Okay.
1966. It hasn't functioned correctly, I don't think, since 1966, but it has been in existence.
Operational since 1966.
And so part of my transparency efforts has already started on this board. Now, I don't want to get too in the weeds on that, only because ethically, I shouldn't use the board as part of a campaign thing.
As a platform.
So I would just say that's work I've done, and then go from there.
Another issue you're campaigning on is something that you have coined as tax and hoard. Can you explain what that is?
I would say it's the number one issue. Tax and hoard. We hear about tax and spend, right? And I think bad faith actors locally would try to paint me as a tax and spend Democrat, because that's the old adage about what Democrats are: tax and spend. Even though, again, not a lifelong Democrat. But what I'm calling it is tax and hoard, because Putnam County has been taxing us and then hoarding the money. They're sitting on an unassigned general fund of $90 million. $90 million. Okay. That is an absurd amount of money to have sitting unassigned in your general fund. All right. That is money not being invested into the communities, into the local towns. It is why I made the biggest push about sales tax redistribution. I stood on the floor of the legislature with Republican elected officials, Jackie Anabi from Putnam Valley, Mike Kazari from Carmel. Okay. We stood to fight for that sales tax redistribution, because that's where a lot of that money has come from, is the influx in sales tax revenue that the county's created and sending it back to the towns who actually generate it. That's one of the very first things I wanted to push for. But it's still $90 million. When you look around our neighborhoods, you look around at our communities, you're telling me we can't find ways to invest that money, not spend it, not reckless spending, but to invest it in things that will return on that investment. Things like, by the way, and this is something where I differ with the Democratic legislator on the board now, Nancy Montgomery. She's not a big fan of the Putnam County Golf Course. I actually think a public golf course is typically a great investment. Okay, it typically returns 4 to 7 times what you initially spend on it. Now, in terms of transparency, we don't know how much was initially spent on it. That's what we're trying to find out. But I'm all for investing money to get a return on that investment. That's what I do as a business owner. Any smart financial person wants to get a return on anything that they spend. That's what I'm interested in. So when you tell me we have $90 million sitting in a fund not being used for investment, and I start looking at all the different towns and neighborhoods around this county, and I'm telling you can't find a place to invest this money that's going to benefit everybody, that's unacceptable. And so that is what I call tax and hoard. And that's just the cash, by the way. There's also money not assigned or earmarked for any projects, but that's sitting in investments. That's just collecting interest. That's also part of it. So really the real hoarded amount of taxpayer money is closer to $130, $150 million. As a conservative, taxing me, taking my hard-earned goddamn money and sitting on it and doing nothing with it is outrageous. It is outrageous. So that's the tax and hoard. That is what I'm calling it.
You have mentioned you've spoken on the legislative floor about creating programs geared towards adults with special needs.
Yeah. What
does that look like? And this ties in with your profession.
Yeah, sure. This is a big issue for me. As I said, I was a glad vocal advocate of County Executive Kevin Burns' initiative to get this early learning center done. It's going to be at the Inner Arts. It is at the Inner Arts building in Patterson. It's an inclusive preschool for kids of all abilities, the first of its kind in Putnam County. And I commend him. I thank him. Like I said, I know Kevin. I like Kevin. We are lockstep on this. But what I said to Kevin, I even said this to him back in February after he announced this project at the state of the county, because we see each other all the time. And I said, Kevin, and I've said this to the legislature, the early learning center is a great start, but it can't be the end. The real crisis in special education is adult services. That's where the crisis is. When these kids age out of school-based services, it's like falling off a cliff. You go from having almost everything paid for through your school district, okay, to having nothing. The speech stops, the PT stops, the OT stops, the behavior therapy stops. It all stops. Now you've got to go figure out where to do it. Now there's truly great organizations like Mid-Hudson ARC, Career Support Solutions that do their best to fill in that gap, but they are woefully underfunded. Career Support Solutions used to get $30,000 a year. Again, we're sitting on $90 million. $30,000 a year goes to Career Support Solutions. And that got cut in half in the last budget from 30 to 15. The legislature just had to restore that additional 15 just to get it back to 30. Now, when they did that, I went and supported it, but I also told them we need more. That is where the crisis is. These individuals who can contribute to society, have real societal value and dignity and integrity, are being kept from being involved in their home communities. A lot of these people have to get sent away to residential programs that are in other counties or in other states even, not being able to live as adults in their homes and in the home communities they were brought up in and raised in. It is not government's job to solve the world's problems. That is not the job of government. That is the job of people. The people in the communities have to solve their problems. They have to come together and do that, okay? But that doesn't mean government can't provide the assist when it is able to. And so when we have $90 million and we're investing already in projects like the Early Learning Center, this is where an investment comes back. Now, when you invest in adult vocational training of any kind, this is where I go back to investment. Okay, as a business owner, when you invest in adult vocational training, that pays back to you 2 to 4 times your initial investment. So not only are you providing a service to your community, not only are you providing a vital life skill to these individuals, it is an investment that will pay back to the entire community as a whole. Why wouldn't we do this? And I want to be clear, Kevin hasn't said he wouldn't do this. He hasn't said that at all. He's entertained me each time I bring it up.
Idea.
And this is something that as a legislator, I will continue to work on. I want to work with Kevin on this. I want to get this done because we actually have about 10% of the population in Putnam County is affected by this. Either they are already adults or they're going to be in the coming years. And it is this is a national crisis, Okay. And I would say also, I came here. We moved our time for this because I was at a suicide awareness walk at Putnam County. The developmentally disabled community is at a higher rate than the national average for suicide.
I was going to say, what's the usual outcome for adults in that situation?
It varies. Okay. But it really is a bigger health crisis than anything else. And what I mean by that is because they aren't working, because they don't have access to the gyms and the ability to exercise and all these other things, healthy food sources, okay, especially lower income families who have individuals with special needs. They're on medications that promote weight gain, okay? Some medications they don't even need to be on, but they promote weight gain. They promote all these health crises. Everyone looks around at America and we all know that we're well above the global average for obesity and all these other issues. The special needs community is 30 times higher at risk for chronic illness than the national average, which is already significantly higher than the global average. Yeah. Okay. Chronic illness like type 2 diabetes, obesity, depression. Okay. We have to find a way to invest in these individuals because they do provide value. They provide massive value. I've done it. I do it. I do vocational training. Okay. I know that even you look at an individual, you would, see a lot of stereotypical behaviors and you'd say, oh man, that's tough. That's who he's going to be the rest of his life. No, they can learn. They can do a lot of things. We just have to raise the bar, not on them, but for ourselves. Mm-hmm. We have to say, I'm willing to give them that opportunity. And like I said, that's not just spending money on a service. That is literally investing in your community. That's going to pay back in multiples. That's the investing I want to do in Putnam County.
Brett, it seems like you're appealing not only to the Democratic Party, but to the Republicans, and you seem very moderate. Historically, Democrats tout anti-police rhetoric. What is your stance on law enforcement?
Yeah, this goes back to one of the questions we asked about aligning with the Democratic Party, right? Mm-hmm. And I would say that, sure, historically, there have been some extremists in the Democratic Party who have said things like defund the police and are completely anti-law enforcement. I cannot unequivocally enough denounce that type of thinking. I come from a law enforcement family, as I mentioned.
I was going to say, I heard that. And then I had saw you more recently at the annual prayer walk.
I was at the Back the Blue prayer walk. Happy to be there. I would also just say that by the way, at that walk, there were more Democratic candidates than there were Republican candidates who are not already sitting in elected office. But again, this is not a party issue. If you want to defund the police, you're a moron. Okay. Especially here in Putnam County. Do you know we have the 8th safest county in the country? That's in large part due to the Putnam County Sheriff's Department and to our local town, our local law enforcement. You know, I mentioned my grandfather, NYPD, Korean War vet. Okay. 2 uncles, corrections officer, court officer. My godfather, who I mentioned before, by the way, he's not a police officer, but
you said a court officer.
A court officer, right. Yeah. But my godfather, he's not a police officer, but he is a contractor for New York City, and he works in the New York City Police Department often, has run projects for them for years. So what I would say is you never want to pigeonhole somebody who has Democrat somehow attached to them, and mine is as a party that I vote, that I'm registered to vote in, with everything that every other Democrat in the history of the world has ever said. Just like I would never do that to a conservative or a Republican. Okay. That's what this is all about. It's about getting away from those types of stereotypes and that pigeonholing of every Democrat's the same, every Republican's the same. What I would say, especially about local law enforcement, which as a county legislator is what we deal with. Local law enforcement plays a vital role in keeping the community together and keeping it safe. I have been a part of local law enforcement demonstrations going back 10 years, 5 years, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. 5 years ago, okay, there, and this is on my Instagram, at Brett Yarris on Instagram. You can go find it. And it's the New Canaan Police Department. And by the way, I actually do work with local law enforcement. I train local law enforcement, notably the Pound Ridge Police Department, to assist in community crises for adults with special needs. I know firsthand the value law enforcement plays in a local community. So when the New Canaan Police Department 5 years ago, just a couple days after George Floyd died, organized, sponsored, and participated in a walk event to bring the community together. And my client at the time, who was an NFL player where New Canaan was his hometown, he was playing for the Chiefs at this time, asked me to be there. I was happy to be there. It is a great community building event. Thousands of people in a 92% white community came together, not to defund the police, not to, pledge allegiance to, the Antifa movement or whatever any of that stuff is, okay? They came together to move forward in healing. That would not have happened without the New Canaan Police Department, okay? The New Canaan Police Department did a phenomenal job of not just, they didn't just help us walk down the block. They walked with us. The chief of police, Leon Kalinowski, was the keynote speaker. Okay. And by the way, this event was covered in the New Canaanite 5 years ago. Okay. It was June 4th, I believe. So you can actually go read what he said. The New Canaan Police Department posted about this to their own Facebook page. Okay. And so when you take a look at local law enforcement, I could not have been prouder of the New Canaan Police Department that day. The video has this NFL player in particular saying things into a megaphone. He says, Black Lives Matter. He says, no justice, no peace. And somehow bad faith actors, because it's political season, are trying to now spread this rumor that I'm anti-law enforcement. But because they don't do their homework, because they're lazy and they want to just scare people versus bring them together, what they didn't do is they didn't investigate my background. They didn't investigate what I do with law enforcement. They didn't investigate my family's background. They didn't investigate the people helping me on my campaign strategist, not just a conservative from an ideology standpoint, but a retired police officer. Okay. And they didn't investigate how the New Canaan Police Department was involved in that event. They wanted to take a clip of a video and scare people into that this was a defund the police movement sponsored by Black Lives Matter. Okay. It was sponsored by the police department. It's on their Facebook page. You can go look for it. Okay. I just showed it to you off air. Okay. The police department played a vital role in that event. That's also why I was happy to be at the Back the Blue event. Kudos to Marianne Chaluzian in this community. I believe it was the 6th annual event. It was, full transparency, the first one I've been to. Okay. Now that I'm involved in so many of these community events, I'm starting to see events that I didn't even know existed. I was thrilled to be at this one. A lot of different law enforcement officers spoke. One of them being Carmel's chief of police, Tony Hoffman, who has done an amazing job making Carmel not just one of the safest towns in the county, but the safest towns in the country and state. And so I want to put all that nonsense to rest. Is anything I just said going to change people's minds about this?
No, I think
probably not.
It's very clear. You've clarified, very insightful, and I think you explained it well.
Sure.
There might have been some confusion with that.
And I think that's fair. I think when we are in a society now where we're scrolling a lot during the day, right, and somebody involuntarily puts something in front of us on our feed and we go, what? There's a guy saying Black Lives Matter and Brett filmed it and put it to his Instagram. He's got to be anti-police. And that's what we're going to say now. Just a little bit of homework, just a little bit of research. You would have found out that event was planned by the New Canaan Police Department, sponsored by their department, posted on by their department, and participated in by their department. And just to remove any doubt, I actually went back to that post and I tagged the New Canaan Police Department in it after the fact, full transparency. But just to make it clear, I didn't just mention the New Canaan Police Department. I tagged their official account so they'd be notified about it, to thank them for that event. And that, I think, is what we need to be doing, is participating in events that bring people together. You know where else I went recently? I went to the Charlie Kirk Vigil, the only Democrat to do so. I didn't post about it. This is the first time I'm saying anything about it publicly, and only because this other incident came up, okay? I don't want to politicize a young man's death, but I was at that vigil. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. Every speaker, including my opponent, Jake D'Angelo, who, if he's being honest, and I know him to be honest, he will tell you, I congratulated him for his role in putting that event together and how well he spoke at it. Every speaker at that vigil could have taken a chance to say, the left is evil, the left is bad, Brett's part of the left, we have to get rid of the left. Not one of them did that. Every speaker did the right thing. They came to bring people together. That walk event in New Canaan 5 years ago brought people together. I will always support any community event, any local law enforcement, any community organization that wants to bring people together. That's what this is about. Forgetting those artificial divisions being forced on us from corporate media and everywhere else. It's getting back to being a good neighbor and coming together. That's all this is.
Well, thank you for your clarification.
Sure.
Before we conclude this episode, are there any other campaign talking points or a final message you'd want to share?
No, I would just say we live, and I've said this a few times now, we live in a society where it is really difficult to look at our next door neighbors, across the street neighbors, people we see in the grocery store, and see them as real people who are struggling the same way that we are. Okay? And when they're struggling, we don't go, oh, it's because he's a Republican. Oh, it's because she's a Democrat. No, man, it's my neighbor. She's struggling. How can I help? That's what we need to get back to. The social media, the cable news, the tabloid newspapers, they are forcing us into these corners. And while they're doing that and we're doing it with them, we're blindly going into our corners. Bad actors are coming in and we are losing sight right here at home. Not that I don't care about Washington, D.C. I obviously care about federal issues. I care about state issues. The most important issues that impact my day-to-day life are right here at home. So I could sit here, I could lie to you. I could say, vote for me because I'm a Democrat and the Republicans suck. That's a lie. The Republicans don't suck. The government isn't failing because there's Republicans in office in terms of Putnam County. That's not why they're failing. As I said, it's run by Republicans and they hate each other. Not because they're Republicans, but because they're the wrong people for the job. So if I can continue to give my message out to the everyday person, Republicans are supporting me. Conservatives are supporting me. Democrats are supporting me. Independents are supporting me. You can too. And if you're one of those people, okay, you're a Republican or a conservative, and you've said, I would never vote for a Democrat, but I like this guy. I know he's going to do right by me. You don't have to vote for me on the Democratic line. Line 5 on the ballot. Okay, you have the Yarris race in the first column, then you have this race in the second column. And line 5, row 5, for the people. That's all you have to do. You're not voting for a Democrat. You're voting for a person that is backed by conservative party representatives, Republicans, Democrats, independents, and most importantly, my neighbors. And that's what I am. I'm your neighbor. We live here in this town together. And I just want to make sure that we're all going to thrive moving forward. And we're not right now, but we can be. If we make the right investments, we make the right decisions, and we remember who it is that we serve. Not you, not me, us. We do this for us. We do this for the people.
So the general election is November 4th. Early voting starts October 25th.
Yep.
And since your presence is very, I didn't want to say overwhelming, but your presence is well known on Facebook, Instagram. What are the accounts? Where can people find you exactly?
Yeah, I always tell people to search my name if you want to find me on social media. So Brett Yarris, one word for Instagram, or just my name on Facebook. It'll pop up. I have my campaign account, which is, Brett Yarris, for us. But I always tag the two anyway. So if you follow one, you're going to see the other. I think most importantly is my YouTube account. Okay, which is the same thing as Yarris for us, all right, which is the name of my campaign committee. Again, I might be the only candidate who actually has a campaign committee. So with full financial disclosures on it, by the way. So I think what I would love is people go to that YouTube account, because that YouTube account isn't just... I
actually didn't know about that one.
Oh, yeah. So what happens is, and it's good that you don't, because it goes to that idea that this is all inauthentic, right? But I am trying to create a public record so no one has to wonder what it is I'm for or against. So when I do speak in the legislature and somebody sends it to me, or I clip it up myself, I post it on YouTube. You can go to my YouTube, it has over 20 videos, not of me speaking to the camera, trying to convince you with campaign talking points, but with me in public on the floor of the legislature, confronting our legislators as they sit there on these issues. So if you want to know where I stand on transparency, or on public speaking, or on the rights of our farmers, or on the Early Learning Center, or on a host of other things, you can go watch it unfiltered on YouTube.
All right. There you have it, folks. Brett Yarris, candidate for Putnam County Legislator of District 5. It's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. If anyone, a business owner or individual, would be interested in sponsoring a future episode, please reach out to us. Also, if you live in Westchester or Putnam County and you would like to come on the show as a guest to discuss any concerns, issues, or even to try to promote an upcoming event, we'd love to have you. Thank you for watching the podcast Beyond the Ballot. Like, subscribe, and leave us your comments. Thank you.